Good afternoon, Rabbi. There is a Gemara in Masechet Tanit, Chavtet Amud Bet. It says over there that the Mazal of the Jews on Chodesh Av, in the month of Av, is not so good. So therefore, it says, right, that if a person has a court case with a goy, to try to change it to a different time, to Chodesh Adar, when the Mazal of the Jews is good over there. So the question arises, how does this Gemara say such a thing like this when we have a Gemara in Masechet Shabbat, Kuf Nun Vav? It says over there, En Mazal Le'Yisrael, right? There is no constellation, there is no Mazal for the Jews. Meaning what? That the Jews are above the Mazal. They go according to their merits. There's a Chuyot, not according to their Mazal, not according to constellations. They can go above that, as we find with Abraham Avinu, that even though his Mazal was not to have children, he had children anyway. He had also other problems with his Mazal, and he fixed all the other things as well. So we do find that the Jews are above Mazal in the Gemara and Shabbat. So the question was, how do we reconcile this? Says the Ritva that it really depends on the time. What does that mean? That most of the time there is no Mazal for the Jews all year round. But when it comes to these 2 months, Chodesh Adar, when the Mazal is good, and Chodesh Av, the month of Av, when the Mazal is bad, so over there, God decreed that there should be a Mazal even for the Jews in those times. But otherwise, besides those times, says the Ritva, so there, the truth is, right, that there is no Mazal for Israel, like we mentioned in Masechet Shabbat. There's also different answers brought by different Rishonim, the earlier authorities. Says the Tosfot that even though that there is Mazal for certain things, like we find in the Gemara, Moed Katan, Kafchet, it says over there that when it comes to 3 things, right, Chaye, Mezoneh, Baneh, so then there is Mazal even for the Jews. What does that mean? That when it comes to how long a person will live, and also how many children he will have, and when it comes to also his sustenance, his parnasah, his income, over there, those 3 things are affected by the Mazal. They are affected even by the Jews. So the truth is, right, that there is an exception to what we said, that the Jews are above Mazal according to this. So comes and says Tosfot, the truth is, right, that both these concepts are true. What does that mean? That in general, when it comes to these 3 things, the Jews are also affected by Mazal. But if a person has a lot of zechuyot, if he has a lot of merits, he can also overcome the Mazal and rise above it, and therefore, right, he can change his Mazal. That's the idea. That's according to Tosfot. The Rashba, in his Chuvot, brings also another reason, another reconciliation to this contradiction. He says that when we say that there is Mazal for these 3 things, we're talking about the individual. When it comes to the individual, there's Mazal, and these 3 things are effectuated by Mazal, as we say. When it comes to the Am Yisrael, the Jewish people as a whole, so over there is no Mazal. The Jewish people as a whole, as a nation, are above the Mazal. So it depends on the individual or the tzibur, right, the community altogether, right, at large. There's also another way of reconciling this problem. We also find in some other places, like in the Rambam, in the Tshuva, in one of the responses of the Rambam, he writes over there that this Gemara, which says in Moed Katan, that these 3 things are affected by Mazal. So he says, right, that the Gemara in Masechet Shabbat, Kuf Nun Vav, as we mentioned over there, it says there is no Mazal. So he says the halacha is like that Gemara in Shabbat, that the Jews are above Mazal. So therefore he cancels out this Gemara in Moed Katan, and he says it doesn't apply to us, right? So therefore he says, right, that when it comes to everything, the Jews are above Mazal according to Rambam. And this is also brought down in other places as well. They bring this down as a source to claim that really the truth is that the Jews are above Mazal. And the halacha is not like the Gemara that says that these 3 things are effectuated by Mazal. We also find in the Meiri, he also says, he rejects this notion, right, that these 3 things are effectuated by Mazal, even by the Jewish people. He says, no, it cannot be like that, right? The Jewish people are above Mazal, so therefore he goes like the Rambam and he says that a person is above Mazal. So what's the truth, Rabbi? We find all kinds of different answers over here. So the truth is that you should know that these earlier authorities, all of them, that stated these opinions, there's one thing that they were lacking, right? They were not lacking knowledge in one thing. They never saw the book, the Zohar Kadosh, right? The Holy Zohar, they never saw. Why is that? Because they say the Zohar Kadosh, the Holy Zohar, for some reason it disappeared, this book, during the time of the Rishonim, the earlier authorities. So therefore, all these authorities that we just mentioned, none of them ever saw the Holy Zohar. They never saw it. So what does the Holy Zohar say regarding this dilemma that we have, right? So it says in the Holy Zohar something else altogether. The Holy Zohar, as you know, is the source of all the Kabbalah. So therefore it's very authoritative, right? Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, he had a tradition right, the places that he got these secrets from above. So what does he say over there in the Zohar? It says that the truth is that when it comes to most things, the Jews are above Mazal, right? All the other things. When it comes to these three things, the Jews are also effectuated by the Mazal. So therefore, when it comes to these things, as we said, right, that when it comes to how long a person will live and how many children will have, and marriage, all kinds of things like this, right? Because marriage is for children, so it's also included in that. When he'll get married, who he'll marry, all these things. And also when it comes to Parnasah, when it comes to Mezonot. So here also, it says the Zohar Kadosh that when it comes to these three things, they're effectuated by Mazal, even though regarding other things, the Jews are above the Mazal, but these three things are exceptions. So according to the Zohar Kadosh, really the truth is that there is no contradiction over here. They all fit in very well. So what does that mean? It says the Zohar Kadosh that these three things are effectuated by Mazal. But this is a different kind of Mazal, not the kind of Mazal that we're talking about in general, because there are different types of Mazal. It says Zohar Kadosh, this is something like a higher, elevated Mazal, which is called Zer Arich Anpin, right? Dikna de Arich Anpin. So over there, this Kabbalistic concept, this is a very, very high Mazal. So over there, these three things are effectuated by that Mazal. Says the Zohar Kadosh, when it comes to these three things, a person cannot really readily just change these things very well. He has to, as a Tosfot says, right? Tosfot is correct. He's saying that a person to change these three things, which are effectuated by Mazal, so he needs a great deal of merit, right? Sometimes he needs to also change his, as the Gemara says, right? When you change your location, it changes your Mazal. When you change your name, it changes your Mazal, right? That's why Avraham Avinu had to add a letter to his name, the extra hey, right? He had to change his location. He had to go to Eretz Israel. He had to leave Iraq. He was in Iraq. He had to leave Iraq and go to Eretz Israel. All these things, all right, the person has to change in order to change his Mazal, because when it comes to these three things, having children, and when it comes to Parnasah, and when it comes to how long he'll live, and who he'll marry, when he'll get married, these three things, as we said, right, they're effectuated by Mazal, and they're very, very difficult to change. So therefore, you need a great deal of merit, zechut, to change these three things. When it comes to the other things, a person is not effectuated by Mazal because the Jews are above Mazal, right? So therefore, Rabotai, the truth is that the real emet, right, is like the Zohar Kadosh. Why is that? Because the Zohar Kadosh is the source of the Kabbalah. These Rishonim, early authorities, never saw that. If they would have seen the Zohar Kadosh, they definitely would have admitted, right, that the words of the Zohar Kadosh are more authoritative than their own. Because Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, right, he was the greatest of the great, right? So therefore, but nevertheless, Abatai, all these answers that were given by all these authorities, they're all Divrei Elohim Chaim, words of the living God. What does that mean? That they do apply all these answers according to different cases. A person has to write, a wise man, who's a Chacham, knows how to reconcile all these opinions and put them into one big, nice, beautiful package, right? And knows how to manipulate these things according to the situation, according to the predicament, according to the factors that are involved, right? So a person has to know, Rabotai, that when it comes to these three things, so the question is like this, right? Now that we know that when it comes to these three things, they're effectuated by Mazal. So the question is, why? Why should they be effectuated by Mazal? It should be effectuated by your merits. If you're a good person, you're a tzaddik, you're a rasha, you have a lot of merits, you don't have a lot of merits, why should it depend on Mazal? So explains Zohar Kadosh, the reason why these three things are effectuated by Mazal is because they are actually also a decree. What does that mean? That when a person is born, it was decreed on him to have this kind of Mazal for these three things that we mentioned. The reason is because of his former Gilgul, because of his former lifetime, that he was here before, and he did some things which are good or not good, whatever, according to the deeds that he had in his former lifetime, the former Gilgul. So what happens is, right, that they bring him to be born on a Mazal, which exactly, right, reflects his deeds in the former Gilgul. So therefore, this is the reason why, even though that these three things are effectuated by Mazal, nevertheless, they're also decreed according to merits. Why? What does that mean? The merits of his former lifetime. Right? So the truth is, Rabbatai, that all these things are emet, divrei Elohim chaim. Right? That we say on the one hand that there is no Mazal by the Jews are above Mazal. So as we said, right, according to the various opinions, according to Rashba, right, it's talking about as the public, right, as opposed to the private individual. According to Tosfot, it's talking about if a person has many merits or not enough merits to change his Mazal. Right? According to the Ritva, right, as we said, it depends on the time. Most of the time there is no Mazal. Sometimes there is Mazal, certain times of the year. These are all the words of the living God. Nevertheless, Rabbatai, the bottom line is, right, that a person has to know that when it comes to these three things, they're very difficult because to change the Mazal, you need a great deal of merit to change them. So what can a person do, right? As we said, he has to change. Sometimes he has to change his name. Sometimes he has to change his location, right? All these things, as we said. And also, says Zohar Kadosh, one other segula, right, for this issue is that a person should say Birkat Hamazon. What does that mean? Right? When it says when a person eats a meal with bread, so he should say Birkat Hamazon and say it with kavanah, with concentration. As you should also be looking in a sidur to know what he's talking about, and so forth and so on. And if a person does this, right, the says Zohar Kadosh, that it has some kind of effect on that mazal in order to improve the situation. Also, as we find, Rabbi, that our mothers, right, Sarah Imenu, right, and Rivka and Rachel, they were barren, right? So they also had a problem with childbirth. They also had a problem with this. So what did our forefathers do, right? Abraham, Yitzchak, they prayed for their wives in order that they should right, avert this decree of being barren. So we find, Rabbi, that when it comes to prayers, a person can break also a bad decree, even if it's something which has to do with mazal, by praying and praying with your heart, with full concentration, and not giving up, keeping on praying until the decree is broken. So, Rabbi, there are also ways, as we said, to overcome, right, even a bad mazal by strong prayers when it comes to whether it's Birkat Hamazon or requesting, right, this from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, knowing how to request it properly in the Amidah or in a prayer which is said outside the Amidah, individually, right, just when you're home or when you're out somewhere alone by yourself and you want to talk to Hashem, right, to be alone with Hashem. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu should help us, B'ezrat Hashem, that we should avert all the bad decrees, overcome any bad mazal that we have by our great merits, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu should have mercy on us. Baruch Adonai Le'olam, Amen ve'Amen. Chazak u'Baruch.